Okay, so even with the nerfs, Galio is absolutely nutty, and you can definitely carry with him in pretty much any role that you want to play. Baron, mid, and support. All of them, Galio is still super nutty in because he just provides so much to a team. Like, he provides so much CC, so much protection, and they haven't, nerfed him enough to make him less than S+. And I've been playing him in the support role quite a lot. I really like him in the support role. I do it a lot to deny Galio from the enemy team, more so than anything else. So in the draft phase, when I'm thinking about picking Galio, I'm like, would Galio work well on their team, and can I deny it? B, what does my lane matchup look like? Galio doesn't have many bad lane matchups. I would say that the game that you're going to watch today, he does have a bad lane matchup, but I will talk through the game as we're going. In terms of build, very flexible. You can go Rod of Ages into full tank. You can go like this, Abyssal Mask into full tank. I went for a more supportive build using Zeke's Herald, but I think on testing, I'm not entirely sure that I love Zeke's Herald on Galio. Really, just as a tank, as a support, you just want to be having heavy tank stats. Abyssal Mask is a great item for him versus AP. Otherwise, things like Thorn Mail, things like Frozen Heart, etc. I've thrown a Leandry's in at the end if you can get to it, but of course, just going for more tank items is perfectly suitable. Really, the itemization for Galio support is very flexible, and you either can go full AP, you can go tank. It really depends on the situation. But the runes, they stay relatively consistent. You want Aftershock because it gives you some resistances when you're either taunting or jumping in with your ultimate or going in with your third ability. You want Weakness because you apply a lot of CC, so you want to increase the damage that those people take, especially when you taunt them. And then you want Loyalty and Pack Hunter, which are basically the go-to double support rune combo. So this is my Galio build. I'm going to jump into a game and we're going to analyze it as we go. If you like the content, feel free to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. And thanks to G2A for sponsoring the channel. There is a reference link in the description below. Okay, so a couple of things that I actually did quite a lot of things wrong this game. So I'm going to kind of like reassess what I've done this game so I can learn from it as well as you learning from it. In terms of what I'm initially thinking, if I look at their team comp, Draven, Darius, Evelyn, Akali, Braum, there are a couple of items that really stick out to me as being important. Ninja Tabai, Bramble Vest into Thorn Mail, and probably an Abyssal Mask, maybe a Force of Nature later on. But the priority in terms of defensive itemization this game should really be around the Draven, especially because that's the person I'm laning against. So Ninja Tabai and Bramble Vest should have been a priority for me in this game, but I'll talk about the itemization when we get there. When you're laning up against the Draven, he generally tends to outtrade any AD carry in the game. Draven is a lane bully for a reason. However, as you've seen, he has to be relatively aggressive with his positioning, and we hit level 2 first somehow, and we're able to immediately go in because Draven, has an aggressive position. It just allowed me to walk up and taunt. So something to be aware of, as the Akali was kind of roaming top and just ping top. Something to be aware of is that, when a Draven steps up, if you have someone with hard engage like an Alistair or a Galio in this particular instance, you are able to sort of catch him out if he overextends. Now the Akali ended up going and chasing the Ahri through our blue side. Now I thought that we were in a good enough position in lane that I could roam. I flash over the wall here and knock up the Braum. This is a really, really good play because we know that we've burnt the Draven heal and flash already. So if I just flash over the wall, look for a taunt or look for some damage, we're probably going to kill the Draven who's on about quarter HP. So that was a really nice sequence of events. We hit level 2 and looked for the level 2 all-in. We then roamed to kill the Akali who was chasing Ahri through the jungle. It was a pretty easy roam, good map coordination, good map vision. And then we were able to just flash engage onto the Braum and Draven because I know that Draven didn't have summoners and he was going to be a relatively easy kill, which has given me and Stuart a really good start in the lane. Something to be aware of when you're playing up in any 2v2 matchup in the Dragon lane. Level 2s are really important for a lot of people. There are a lot of people that spike at level 2. Alistair, Lulu, even Galio, in this particular instance. There are a lot of supports that spike at level 2, like Blitzcrank, very, very high, hard level 2 spike as well. So you want to make sure that if you're not going to hit level 2 at exactly the same time as the enemy, you got to be far enough away from them so they can't look for an easy engage like that. This Draven messed up because he allowed me to walk up at level 2 and taunt him, and he was only level 1. He lost out on the level 2 all-in, and it is the cheesiest way to lose the cheesiest way to lose a bot lane matchup. So just be aware of your level 2 timings. Really, really important to ensure that you don't get level 2 all-in by an enemy bot lane. Itemization. I picked up Ninja Tabai. It's going to give me a lot of defensive qualities versus this Draven in lane. Really going to reduce. Now, look, they're trying to freeze this wave. So we step up and I just throw Winds of War down to try and force them back and get that wave under tower. It actually would have been really bad for us if they were able to freeze that wave there, because that would have meant that it would have been very difficult for us to look for an engage, and Draven would have been able to stack his axes really nicely. So yeah, it wasn't, just want to make sure that we weren't allowing them to freeze in that scenario. So I actually walk down because it looks like Akali is roaming, and then I see that Stuart gets caught out a little bit here. I try and buy a little bit of space and actually stop Draven from landing a couple of basic attacks. Stuart lands a really nice ult, and watch his feathers. And then I immediately jump onto him with his ultimate. The magic damage shield that I give with my ultimate is not good versus Draven, but it is good versus Braum. Now, unfortunately, Evelyn just turns up at the wrong time. Look at how I deal with this particular scenario. I let her charm me because I'm not going to die. I taunt towards the tower, pick up the fruit, and then charge back onto her while the tower is hitting her. And we got that because we taunted at the right time. When you taunt, you gain extra resistances as Galio. So you want to taunt as you're walking away because it's going to allow you to survive longer. You taunted Evelyn under turret. I picked up the honey fruit to get some health back. Immediately charge onto her as she's trying to dive me. She was looking for the execute. She was looking for the execute with her ultimate. She wasn't able to get it. Really, really good play. She overextended. I didn't do anything massive to outplay under the turret, but it was just, a nice setup with a taunt, essentially. Just a well-timed taunt. So we're going for the Infernal Drake here, mainly because Evelyn died, and it doesn't look like their mid lane is reacting. Neither does it look like their bot lane is reacting. So we're just going to be able to get this for relative free. Now, I've got the Righteous Glory as well. Righteous Glory allows me to do this, run at the enemy. Unfortunately, I dived towards the dragon, but I'm still able to get a charm onto the Draven because the Righteous Glory was still able to go. Just be aware that the dragon will act as like a target, like a champion. So when you're trying to auto cast, that was what I got caught out by. I was closer to the dragon than I was to Draven, so I tapped on my charge instead of actually manually aiming it, and I just aimed it towards the dragon accidentally. But with the Righteous Glory, that gives you another option for engaging with Galio, especially as Galio's support. So what you can do is you Righteous Glory into taunt the enemy, and then you can use your Justice Punch to get away. Now, in this scenario, unfortunately, they were going for a relatively big gank, and with the Akali roaming up, Stuart did everything that he could to try and buy him time. He does root the Akali, and she has to flash, which ends up going down in a 2-for-1. We probably got the best that we could out of that scenario. We got the Evelyn ult out, and Stuart was able to get enough damage onto Akali to allow Gragas to pick up the kill. I have my ultimate. With the Gragas and the Ahri still hovering around top, and me knowing that the Evelyn is still there, I thought this is probably a good opportunity to just go straight top with my ultimate, which you can see here. Now, he does die to the Draven, but we're actually able to get a really, really, really good set of damage down and pick up the Draven, and I'm also able to slow Evelyn just enough to allow the Gragas to pick up the kill here as well. Again, when you're using Galio ultimate, you want to be very conscious of the map at all times. Just make sure you're looking at your teammates and if they're fighting, and jump to them if you need to. Now, because we got such a huge win on the top side and we have had a minion wave pushing, we go for the tower. It's not the first tower of the game, unfortunately. Darius was able to take that in the bot lane. But getting a tower whenever possible is important, because now if you look where Draven's position is on the minimap, he is so far away from safety, unless he has a Braum or an Evelyn near him, he's very easily able to be ganked. Now, obviously, we're not going to be able to gank him in this current position, but it is just something to be aware of. Once you remove towers from the enemy, you remove areas of the map that are their sanctuary, and he no longer has that sanctuary around the top lane tier 1 tower. And so that means that you can't overextend and you can't push up without vision, especially right now because I've taken an early sweeper, which I definitely recommend that you do. He has no vision around the river, which means it's going to be very difficult for Draven to extend that far up, which makes it much harder for him to take our tier 1 without support. So getting the enemy tier 1 first often protects your own tier 1 because, So I actually knocked the Akali up here. I'm taunting again towards my tower because I was expecting her to dive on me. Luckily, Stuart turns up. We do a lot of damage. Akali's taken very low. Stu does try to use the ultimate to finish her off, but she survives by a minuscule amount of HP. But Fiora is able to get the kill at the end of the day. Now, again, good group up by my team. Fiora and Isaiah very quick at taking towers. With the minion wave, we get another tier 1 in the mid lane. Mid lane tier 1 is so important to take because it allows you to do what the Fiora and the Ahri are doing right now. in the enemy jungle, get vision down. They no longer can enter their jungle safely either. Now, they tried to go for a tier 2 take in the mid lane. We don't really have the minion wave to work with, so I'm glad that they backed off. We should be looking to reset for the upcoming Drake, and also maybe set up vision around Baron, which is going to be spawning relatively soon too. In terms of itemization, should have gone Bramblevest by now. I went for Zeke's. I'm not entirely convinced that I like Zeke's on Galio, because his ultimate cooldown is so long that you don't really get a massive amount of value out of it in the game. So I would say that Zeke's probably just isn't a good item on Galio. You're better off going tank. So instead of going Zeke's, I should have gone Bramblevest this game, but I'm now going for an Abyssal Mask. Now, I was just looking to see if I needed to jump onto the Gragas. I didn't. Don't watch. Yeah, good. You didn't watch. No one saw anything. I definitely didn't fail my flash over the wall. I dive onto the Gragas here just because I thought the Akali was going to go on him. So I was just trying to sort of stop her from doing so. I guess I achieved that. But my team started to overextend a little bit here. Now, as a Galio, you can kind of turn the tides of fights sometimes, like especially in this scenario. Like if you dive in and taunt, you might be able to save people from dying. But you know, I decided that it probably was just best for me to back out here. There was no way that I was going to get close to an Akali or a Draven with this amount of HP. So instead, I just decided to clear the wave. This is probably the more sensible option. I'm not really useful at this stage of the fight, so it's better off me just chilling. If I hadn't failed that flash, we might have been able to find a better fight, but I failed the flash at the end of the day. Fiora and Stu kind of overextend a little bit here. You can see that Stuart's in the enemy jungle by himself. A little bit of an overextension on his part, and he does get chased down by basically the entire enemy team. Does a lot of damage to them, and that, you know, ultimately allows us to look for an engage. I was trying to Righteous Glory a little too early to get into the fight, but you can see here, like, we have a pretty good engage spot. So I dive in, get a taunt, we force the Darius flash, and Akali just auto-paths the wrong way. So Stuart's death wasn't in vain. We end up getting 2 kills out of it. And that actually gives us the ability to drop the Rift Herald mid and gain automatic pressure around this Cloud Drake. Which, by the way, Cloud Drake is apparently the highest win rate Drake in the game, over Infernal. Dropping Rift Herald mid, when you have a neutral objective up, creates automatic priority and automatic pressure. So if you have a Rift Herald and you don't find an obvious opportunity to take the first tower of the game, consider saving it for the next dragon. If you drop it mid, when the dragon spawns, the enemy has to respond to the Rift Herald, or you're likely going to get another tower. If they choose to ignore it and go towards the dragon, then they might lose a tower. If they send one person to it, you could end up forcing a 5v4 fight and winning and getting the dragon. So just be aware that it is a good time to drop the Rift Herald around the second dragon, because that's going to allow you to have automatic priority around that objective, and that's important. So the next objective for us is obviously going to be this Baron. The enemy is quite aggressively sticking vision down. They are pretty confident for a team that is quite far behind. I mean, I'm 4-1 on 7 on my Galio right now. And when you have ultimate, you can hover between lanes. So what I'm doing right now is I'm sticking with my Fiora. I'm just looking for a potential gank opportunity. Like maybe someone face checks me and Fiora looking for a flank on Xayah and on Ahri. So what we were doing was we were basically sitting in river saying, if anyone tries to flank my Xayah and my Ahri, we're going to be there. We're going to catch them off on a 2v1. I'm hovering between Fiora and my mid lane right now, because as I can see, like, you know, there was a potential fight there. I could have just ulted straight into the fight and it would have been pretty good. I feel confident to take this ward now the Akali missed her shuriken. And you can see that the Evelyn, you know, just decides to get chunked out here. Now, I actually meant to use my dash, ended up using my ultimate, but Braum, you know, he dived away. So we get priority in mid lane. That's perfectly fine. This is where the upsy daisy begins, because we don't really have a need to siege this tower. Like, Fiora is pushing in the side lane. We could just wait. We don't need to overextend on this tower. But the Ahri lands a charm, and I immediately drop that into a big taunt onto the Braum, which, you know, ends up getting us the kill. We have a teleport coming in from Fiora here as well. We get the Darius' GA. I completely mistimed the GA, but Stuart manages to get the root with his feathers, and we end up picking up the kill regardless. Now, we should focus tower here. Just hit the tower. I really shouldn't be doing this. This was dumb. Akali kills like 3 people in one go and then up kills me. If we just killed the tower, we might have been getting something out of that play. It actually makes me cringe to watch that back. Like, we should have just focused the tower. And that was actually a big comeback, because she got some shutdowns and a load of gold. And Akali, you know, if you give her any kind of gold, that's pretty bad. Honestly, that's pretty bad. But it's not the end of the world. Like, I'm still 5-2 and 10. Like, I'm still pretty tanky. We have the Baron coming up relatively soon. We have the Ocean Drake that will be on the cards. This is a bad idea from Fiora. She's a level up and has double buffs. If that Akali was smarter, I would have taken that fight. Like, you knew that we were all dead. So it was a 1v1 and your team was on the field. Like, you could have just gone for that fight versus the Fiora. I think she would have won. I actually think she would have won relatively easily. So now the big objective for us is clearly going to be around the dragon. We have the Ocean Drake spawning relatively soon. You can see that the timer is starting to sort of creep round. But dragon, like Baron, is really going to be the major point. This is a really nice catch. Like, we dive in, we force her to use her ultimate very, very quickly. And then we start pinging Baron. Why do we start pinging Baron when we haven't killed anybody and we've only forced the Evelynn ultimate? Well, we've got good control of their blue side jungle. They don't want to step into it because we might be there. Secondly, the biggest form of steal that you get in this game with an Evelynn is an Evelynn ultimate. And once that's down, she's not going to be easily able to steal. So, you know, I just taunted to zone them away from the pit. I tried to jump onto the Ahri to give her the magic damage shield. Unfortunately, Akali just is so fed she ends up getting a double kill. But the rest of my team is doing super well. So, you know, that's perfectly fine. We're okay with that. And the Akali ends up dying here eventually too. We have the Ocean Drake spawning. We now have Baron on 3 members on our team. That's going to allow us to get the mid lane tier 1 if we want to. And also is going to give us the 3rd dragon of the game, which is really good. So now we're just waiting, obviously, for me to respawn, like just see what we can do on the map. When you have the Baron, like you either want to do 2 things with Baron. You want to split push with it, so give like Fiora a side lane and the rest of you group up in another lane, or you just want to legit group up as 5. Like, you just want to stay as a unit and just push down a tower. So, you know, I think with our comp, we could have Fiora split push, but we're so good as a team fight right now that actually grouping up as a 5 and just pushing down mid probably wouldn't be too bad. You know, there is no mid lane tower there, so grouping up as 5 and getting a fight might allow us to just end the game. But on the flip side, if we're able to just get side lane towers, we can slowly push this game out and slowly win this game. Now, Draven does overextend a little bit here. He gets caught out, and that actually means that I'm able to walk over towards this Akali, who ends up dying to the Gragas 1v1. I'm taunting just to prevent her from potentially escaping. But we end up cleaning up a couple of members, by ourselves at this point. And you can see people start teleporting onto the base. I'm going to jump in on Stu to give him a shield, which is really nice. We dive in, get the taunt, and we end up winning the game here, which is just good. Yeah, there we go. End up winning the game. Galio, super awesome. Great pick. Play him.